Hey everybody, it's Don Rogers back on the After Dark show. For those of you just catching this one, the After Dark show is something that came up as a brain project of mine. It's literally what goes on in the dark programs that we don't know about in modern society, or black bag projects, whatever you want to call them. The subculture within the subculture, the shit that goes on to targeted individuals, things that are just done to us that nobody else really talks about because it's kind of taboo and not supposed to be happening. So today I have arranged something that I can't believe I made happen. I have two of the most fascinating, learned people that I have run across since I've started my podcasting journey. And the first is the guy who's the entire reason I'm even here, is the host of the Typical Skeptic, Robert Kalil.
I'm
And
some,
yeah. The second is a very new, fascinating friend I've just made in the last couple of months, but we instantly clicked and started talking like we had known each other for the last 30 years. Is Stephen from BG Cast on the Forbidden Knowledge Network.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, Don. I appreciate it. I look forward to this conversation, and I had a great time last time I was here, and most likely going to have another good time. So, looking forward to this, man.
Yeah.
I just want to
So,
say, Stephen, I watch your show. I watch a lot of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. I'm friends with Chris. You know, we do each other's show a lot, and I think it's great that he's been able to build a network, and you guys are on that. That's really cool. Yeah, but it's nice
Let
to
me
meet you,
Nice
and
to meet
thanks.
you too, Rob. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna tell you what. I am so grateful to be part of such a really cool network, man. And Chris picked me up. I started this podcast 2 years ago. Chris picked me up 3 months into this. I saw a video of him on Rumble, and I was on Rumble too, and he was talking about all the censorship issues he was having on YouTube. And I was like, dude, so am I. I was like, let's do a show together and talk about this. And then I had Chris on my show for the first time back in March of 2023. And it was shortly after that he picked me up, and he's. I guess I have an interview in his second part of his documentary, Doors of Perception, which I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, it's been quite an experience, Rob. It's been one of those rides that I just kind of sit back and see where it takes me.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I I love how, like, the way I've come to both of you is just so cultivated and natural. Like, I found both of you literally through my partner Spinja, and it's just been like necessary steps during my awakening, because you guys and Chris are doing the types of shows that people that are just rubbing their eyes, like, you can literally stair step through Rob's episodes and things you can find on Forbidden Knowledge. Any answer you need to talk to yourself about or need extra ideas, like, that's why I even started doing the review shows. Is like, the shows that are being done are so thought inspiring that you're just like, well, shit, now I want to ask this question out loud and ask what other people think, right? But yes, so thank you both for even doing your shows, because you guys inspire so much thought within the community that it is absolutely a necessary thing that we're doing right now.
Yeah,
Well, I
thanks.
appreciate that.
I was gonna say, when I started off, like I didn't even think it was gonna come down to this. I was like, I was like when I had my awakening, and well, I told you this, Don. I used to listen to Art Bell when I was young, like so I was always like into like the paranormal and UFOs and stuff. But then like when I started my show in 2020, like I thought it was just gonna be about like the paranormal and UFOs and stuff like that. Like I had no clue that like I was going to be interviewing people who say they've been in the secret space program and targeted individuals and military abductees. And it kind of just took a lane of its own. And now like I look forward to those interviews. Like that's the kind of people that I want to have on the show. Like last night, I just had Mario Mijares on that show, who's like a targeted individual, but he's also like a shaman. And he's like, he told some really interesting targeting stories. Like me, I'm a little bit like still like I'm still kind of like halfway in the closet about my targeting experiences, because like I'm a little bit afraid. I'm afraid to like tell everybody everything because I don't want to be looked at as like I'm crazy. Because you could get people can judge you like really fast. You know what I mean? Like, so, and they can just kind of brush it off as being crazy. But I don't think it's crazy. I think the more that I learn, the more I'm starting to figure out that I'm really a targeted individual. I just don't know why. You know, from what Tommy Edwards tells me, he says we're all Tommy Edwards, he was the running back for Virginia Tech who spoke out against college football, and then he started to become targeted, and now he talks about all of that stuff. But he said that he thinks that they're just experimenting on certain people in the populace, like before they bring these three things out mainstream. That's one of the ideas. But I'd love to hear what you guys think, but that's where I'm at with it.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, Don. What were you gonna say?
yeah. I'm just gonna preface, like, just to let everybody else know, we brought this show together because there's kind of a project within the subculture that we all kind of exist in. And if you're watching these shows, you'll get it. It's called Project Oblivion, and it seems to be going on within the paranormal, spiritual, what have you communities that we're all kind of circulating in. And what we're talking about is exactly this, like targeting, like people being inserted into our lives, like just general shit disturbers, black pillars, shysters instead of shaman, like people that charge for shit that have absolutely no preference, right? People that are like, it's pay to play for everything. They won't share any information. Like that seems like a scam. And that's what we're going to dig into today is this subculture that's going on and the targeting within our own community. Sorry to jump in, but Stephen, absolutely
No, no,
grab
no,
it.
no, 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 absolutely, man. No. So kind of a similar story to Rob, I guess you could say everything kind of hit me completely in 2008, but I grew up liking UFOs, the paranormal, things like that. I had a lot of paranormal experiences when I was a child, and I guess I officially kind of woke up in 2008, and about almost 16 years later, 17 years later, here I am doing this, and it is interesting what you said, Rob. I have a good friend of mine, and I'll give you this too long don't read version of this because it's actually quite an immense story. But I have a friend of mine who actually he ended up becoming a TI. He is an electrician like I am. He ended up flying out to Chester, Pennsylvania to do a job out there because sometimes we travel to do work. It is what it is. And he ended up seeing a UFO or a UFO like object over a Boeing factory while he was out in Chester, Pennsylvania. And then what kind of proceeded to happen after this was one of the craziest gang stalking stories I had ever heard. He got taken to two different mental hospitals
Oh
where
my
they
god.
gaslit him the whole time he was there, and he was able to kind of see what was going on. And he got taken to stage cities. He got taken to a so there he got there's a Wowson, Ohio. He was supposed to get taken to because his rent a car broke down, but they took him to another Wowsing, Ohio, which was like 2.5 hours west, and it was an empty stage city. There was nobody there, and he ended up getting a peek behind the curtain. So as far as the targeted individuals and these issues and these programs, I wholeheartedly believe it at this point, based not only on experiences I've had in my life, but some of the experiences of other people I've talked to, and then there's the Project Satan and the Project Christ. That I sent over to you and Spinja, Don, and Rob. If you would like a copy of that article as well, I can send that over to you also. But they have these programs that they are implementing to cause menticide, which is the killing of the consciousness of collective populations. And I do believe that this targeted individual aspect that a lot of us experience, and these programs that they have kind of all tie into this. It's very interesting because we're dealing with individuals who know the human psyche and the human consciousness, and how it operates at a very high level. They understand it very well. So that's how they get away with this. Is they use certain methods and they use plausible deniability. And even on the subjective level, they use with these targeted individuals plausible deniability as well, because that's why they they make you look like you're crazy. And I did have a guy on my show. He's a DJ now, but he used to work for the CIA and he had a top secret clearance. And he said gang stalking is a real thing, 100%. So I've had a few people in the higher up echelons who did have security clearance kind of come forward and solidify that for me.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say that guy who I had on my show last night, Mario Maharas. He's really interesting. He was telling me that he went on this trip like where he was he was traveling around the country like for like different reasons. Like he felt like he was on like a spiritual mission. So he said I don't know. I just did the show last night. He said you made me just think of this. He said he was in his hotel room. He showed me the hotel. It was like a really nice hotel, but he said it was like right on that border where there's in like Oregon, California, and Mexico, where there's like a lot of trafficking going on. So he felt like it was a little bit evil. And then what he said was he said he took some shrooms, and then he felt like the whole night he was battling like astral demons and stuff. But then when he woke up, he had a friend text him, and they said that the picture of him was on that app. You know, that it's I don't can't remember what it's called. It became popular during the lockdowns, like where people were like talking about their neighbor or something like that. Well, they said that he was on this app, and they said that he was going to people's houses, trying to knock on their doors and ask them if he could bless them or something, or talk to their children and stuff like that. So now keep in mind he's already a targeted individual. You know what I mean? From other things. So this was like more targeting. But meanwhile, he never left his hotel room the whole night. You know, this is what he says. So this is kind of the weird shit that happens to people. You know, it's just bizarre. You know,
Yeah. Something I'm just gonna throw in, and I know why it seems like in our community it's really being stepped up, because I know since my awakening, like the latest step of my awakening last year in September, I've come into some abilities and shit that are kind of fun to play with. I was actually on Rob's show and showed him a bunch of bases and stuff, and even some Space Force shit that you're not supposed to know about. But because I've remote viewed it, and anyways, that's fun and all that. I know why people like us are being fucked with, and generally the star seeds, because I just had something happen. I did a show with Maya, and I mentioned an experience with lights in Kemble, Ontario when we were little kids. And when I ended the conversation, I was like, damn, I wonder if they remember that too. Well, this is an experience that happened over 30 years ago. My friend that was there, that we have never spoken about the experience since, messages me on Facebook, and she's like, Donald, it was 93 or 94. The lights were going back and forth for like over an hour. I'm like, did I ask you that? She's like, no. I'm like, so you just randomly messaged me about the experience and you don't watch my show that I was just talking about to try and get clarification on, to verify that it actually happened, that we saw lights in the sky. She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, just checking. There is some abilities coming online to starseed children, I guess you would call us, but it's why we're getting fucked with so much. And I'm calling it out because, like, I literally had a black helicopter, and I'll put the clip up, that would over my house daily. Well, we all know they can listen to your cell phone anytime they want. So I walked outside with the phone recording, went, I can see you. And the black helicopter tilted a certain way, circled back, so I couldn't get the tail number. And I haven't, it's been back like what, twice? Since maybe once or twice.
Usually at night now.
Yeah.
If there's a helicopter, it's at night.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting, man. You want to know what happened to me? So, this was very interesting. So they are very subtle with me. I don't understand why, but you know, I know they're a little bit more wide open with some people. So, I don't know if you guys remember that thing that happened in the beginning of 2024, where that guy cut his father's head off and was showing, and he was it was a staged event, at least in my opinion, because the father worked for the FBI. The son cut his head off, and was saying we have to get Biden out of office. It was like, we have to attack the Biden regime. The whole, it was definitely a staged event. You could even see the box from the costume or the mannequin superstore where he bought the head in the background of the video. But I called the CIA out and I was like, man, you guys are being really shitty with the reality script as of lately, man. Are you guys like running out of ideas, or or do you have writer's block or something? And I called them out on X about this, and then I come outside to all of the front license plates missing off my vehicles, my work vehicle, my personal vehicle, and my wife's vehicle. So I was just like, this is really bizarre, and I was like, is this? It just seemed very out of the ordinary. So, I mean, I've experienced what I would feel are planted people in my life. And there's a little bit of an interesting history in my family too, which I'm still kind of digging down into. So my uncle is actually a political analyst, and he's been on a lot of mainstream media networks doing political analysis and things like that. And him and my aunt hang out with the upper echelons of what I would call U.S. politicians and things like that. And they've always tried to get me into gifted programs. It's always been like a push for them. Like my aunt wanted me to take the Mensa test. She wanted me to get into the Mensa Society. All of this. So it's always been a weird push by them for me to get into these gifted programs. So I guess you could say, in some ways, I'm very, very, very light on the spectrum. I have something called, or I had something called sensory integration disorder when I was born. It still showcases itself a little bit in certain things today, but I've noticed this kind of targeting also happens to people who are slightly on the spectrum as well. This is just a pattern I've noticed. What about you, Rob?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of things happen to me. It's kind of strange. Like I mean, everything from helicopters outside my house at night, like, which I've noticed a lot more lately. But then, like, like, th- I felt like there was a point where, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I felt like there was a point where they had put cameras in my apartment, like in my studio. And my last, and I know this is going to sound bizarre, like, this is really what we're dealing with here. Um, and then, I moved. I switched apartments, and when I moved into my apartment, I had a new studio. It was almost like they knew which room I was going to use, like, for my studio, and there was cameras again. Like, I tried looking for them. I couldn't try to find them. I can't find them, but it goes off. It's like weird flashing at times, like, and I can't find out where the flash is coming from. So it makes me think, so that made me think, and there's a lot more shit. I get like a person who parks across the street every time I'm out with like my friends. My friends stop over. I mean, like I said, some of this stuff I don't even usually talk about because I feel like it's so weird, but it's very true. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I don't know what's going on. It's strange though, for sure. You know.
Well, yeah, Rob, I was going to mention this, and if you want to, we can get into this. Is like, even within the community that you're creating, there has been some interference. And as a new member of this community, I can call it out from the outside. Like, he had an absolutely fascinating, friendly, wonderful community going on Discord, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was just dissolved. It was like a couple of people came in and that whole community just disintegrated. Like, I think because he was getting thousands of subscribers a month. Like, he went 50 and 60. Like, what are you at now?
I'm at
Like,
like
you making,
I'm at like 16,700, and it hasn't moved for like
yeah,
for a
because
while.
you were making people nervous. Like, you had the community buzzing, and it's that
So,
vibration that terrifies them. Like,
so one thing they do, and I'm convinced that they do this at this point. because we look at Operation Chaos from the CIA and we look at COINTELPRO from the FBI. These were two operations that were started in the late 60s to infiltrate and divert and disengage what I would call dissident groups and counterculture groups that work against the narrative, I guess you can say. And these operations have no concrete end date. They're very vague. So, I mean, of course, we can reasonably speculate at this point that they are most likely going on still. And I do think they do this on purpose. They send people as plants into different communities. Now, I kind of use this analogy. We look at the US black budget and we look at how ungodly that freaking budget is. And we look at the CIA mind control experiments and the Operation Chaos and Operation COINTELPRO. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they're not only putting people in communities, like real life physical communities and neighborhoods to help prop up this narrative and to help facilitate the collective consciousness towards that in that community. They're doing it to online communities as well. They're doing it, all over the place. It's they send these people in to divert and dissolve and disengage any efforts, and a lot of these people are the ones, and are who are starting arguments about, in our communities against petty minute differences at this point in time that don't really matter when we're talking about this. But no, they absolutely do that, and I feel that happened to you, Rob. I feel like they sent a couple of their people in to dissolve what you had going on because they saw you were gaining headway. And then I'm convinced that's what happened.
Wow, that's huge. Like I never really thought of it that way, you know. I mean, I guess I did but what were they doing with these operations like this COINTELPRO? I've heard of that before. I don't know much about it though. Like that sounds like really interesting. Like is that like and because like I know someone came on my show and talked about Project Oblivion, this Olivia James, where she said they're actually targeting podcasters as well. Like they're
Hmm.
I don't know much about it though, you know. But what's interesting is I even went to Chat GPT to look up Project Oblivion and listen to what it says when you look it up. This says Project Oblivion seems to be a term used within the context of conspiracy theories, but its specifics can vary depending on the source. Some may claim it's a clandestine government program aimed at monitoring and controlling individuals, while others might view it as a broader concept encompassing perceived efforts to erase or suppress information about target individuals and their experiences. That's crazy that Chat GPT knows that, you know?
Oh, absolutely, man. So Operation Chaos and COINTELPRO, I'll give you an example. So the CIA infiltrated with Operation Chaos the Democratic Collegiate Association in 1968 or 1969, and you look at the universities today. So this is the what I would call the long game that they play. So Oblivion most certainly could potentially be a Operation Chaos or COINTELPRO 2.0 at this point, because we're looking at a very different playing field than we were looking at in the late 60s, early 70s during that time period. I mean, we did not have the internet as we know it today. A lot of information and a lot of the content that was taken in by people was through TVs, through newspapers at that time. So it was a little bit of a different playing field, but it very well could be that Oblivion would be the 2.0 of these operations, because now we're dealing with a different playing field than we were. We have the internet, we have all of this information. I was actually talking with somebody about this the other night. We have all of these different spiritual books, spiritual doctrines at our fingertips at this point in time. Back in the early days, what we would have to do is we'd have to get on a boat, we'd have to travel the ocean for 2 months, get to land, hike to the top of this plateau to get to this monastery to just find this single book that we've been searching for, but now we have all of that at our fingertips, and that's what they fear. And so that's why I think that Oblivion could potentially be an add-on to these two original operations that are targeting people like us, because we're the ones out here spreading the information.
That's interesting. Yeah. One thing I wanted to say was you mentioned about the college campuses. I thought something that was definitely set up recently was but it was just so funny how it happened. Like they were showing like multiple college campuses where Israeli and Palestinian students were like fighting each other. And I was like, I was like, what are the chances that that would happen on multiple college campuses? It's almost like they put like you were saying, they put people in there to incite the kids to fight, you know, because then it sparks like a reaction from the collective, like, oh, we need to go to war or something like that. I don't know if that's what they were hoping for with that, but I mean, I could see why they would do something like that to you know because number one, it sparks fear in the collective, like, you know, and also it sparks, you know, their war agenda. Would you agree?
Absolutely, man. So I'm gonna run this by you, Rob. And I'm gonna pick your brain on this for a second. What if I threw out the theory to you that a lot of our reality, perhaps most of it, is scripted? Is scripted by the CIA, the FBI, and the DoD. And the reason why I say this is I have a lot of really hard evidence on the fact that the CIA and DoD have their hands in every single bit of mainstream content that is taken in by the consensual population. They and the CIA, DoD, and Hollywood have an amazing revolving door policy. In fact, the CIA and the DoD revise Hollywood scripts. If they do not like what is being portrayed in these scripts, they have the authority to rewrite these scripts before they are released and put into production. You know, a good example was this. I mean, during the Floyd riots in 2020 out here in Denver, Colorado, I remember the day before the protest, I was actually working at a job right up the street from the Capitol at Civic Center, where you know, the protest. But the day of the protest, the morning before, there were these trucks dropping off pallets of bricks in City Center Park, and I was seeing this go on. And at the time, you know, I was looking at this and I'm like, oh, they must be building something down here, something new and all that. And then, you know, as I was watching the protest later that night, I saw that these pallets of bricks were not dropped off to build things. They were dropped off for people to hurl and to throw you know, the cops or at anybody coming by or things like that. So, our reality, man, is highly scripted. And that is why I say, you know, I always pull the Alan Watts quote out of my ass when I say this, but you know, it's a show. And it's just as big of a crime to give up the show than to not know it's a show. And then another quote from him I like is, "Don't be afraid, it's all a show." But he kind of hits it home with that when we're kind of talking about what we experience here. And I'm curious on your thoughts on that, man. And I do think that we live in a scripted reality for sure.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I remember those riots. I remember I was working in downtown Pittsburgh at the time, and the same thing happened here. They had bricks, and like I remember like I was working at like a storefront place, and they had to close down for a couple days because, you know, they like, and it makes me think that like they do this to like spark fear. You know, it's a lot of it is like fear driven. Like they want to put fear into the public so the public reacts, and they will need the government. It's kind of like how David Icke says the problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, they create a reaction, then they create the solution. So then the people are afraid and they feel like they need the government for something. Meanwhile, the government's controlling every aspect of the situation, you know. I feel like they feed off us like batteries in that sense, you know. So I would agree. I would say, yeah, it's probably mostly highly scripted, but I didn't realize I mean, well, I figured mainstream media was, yeah, but like I would say also that like alternative media now is too. I think they put certain people in, they give people social media presences, and then they'll prop them up so they put a certain narrative in the community. And then also I
Absolutely.
was going to say about what you said about Hollywood is interesting too, because I noticed that a lot of that when they come out with alien movies, they make them like all like, you know, that like the aliens are negative and we have to unite and fight against the aliens. And then we hear about Project Bluebeam, where you know they can fake an alien invasion. It makes me think, well, maybe if there are aliens, they're maybe not that bad, and they maybe might want to be friends with us, you know. But you know, the government wants us to feel like we need them to protect us from the aliens, which I don't even think they could do anyway. I mean, I know we have technology, but I feel like, you know, whatever's watching us or whatever has their eye on us, like, and is watching humanity is probably like light years ahead of us technologically. So sorry, that's a lot of stuff there, but I kind of just,
No, no, man, you're all good. So one thing I definitely agree with you on that. You know, if you really look at the benevolent extraterrestrial movies that came out, you have Close Encounters of the Third Kind and you have E.T. That's about it. Those are the only two you know, benevolent extraterrestrial movies you know, that have come out. And what were you say, Don? Go ahead, yeah.
One that got buried, and it's because it came up against Back to the Future, was Flight of the Navigator.
oh, I
Okay.
It's
remember that movie.
an Indian ship, and that movie gave away so much shit. It's no wonder they buried it because
Battery's not included.
oh, battery's not included as well. But
Batteries not included. Okay, I'm gonna have to check those out because I was gonna say Contact with Jodie Foster too. That was another one where the extraterrestrials were portrayed in a positive light. They were not portrayed in a negative light. But I'm gonna say this, man, the real extraterrestrials, at least in my eyes, have no need to invade because they've been here just as long as us, if not longer. You know, invading the planet at this point would be the equivalent of me robbing my own store to them. That's basically what you know, that's why when I look at the narrative that the and this is something that I agree with writer Lee with a lot about. You know, when you look at the narrative that is being portrayed when it comes to the government narrative of extraterrestrials. It is they have shaped it into it being some kind of threat to where that we are going to need them. And this is my opinion on the staged alien invasion, though. I think they really fucked it up. And the reason why I'm gonna say they really fucked it up, I mean, we look back at you know, when they claimed when we had those unidentified flying objects flying over Alaska and things like that, they claimed they shot one down. Well, that was their first fucking mistake there because if it was a real UFO or was something that was you know, let's say we'll even give it on the modest side, we'll say 200 years more advanced than us, we'll put it that way. There's no way you're shooting that down with the technology that we have today. So they messed up there too. And then, you know, the whole UAP meeting in Congress looked completely scripted to me. They looked like they didn't even believe what they were saying half of the time. Like they were looking at their papers, like, I really have to fucking say this? Like, oh my goodness, and things like that. Like it looked like this was just, it was just a piss poor act, at least in my eyes. So, I mean, you know, I'm not saying that they couldn't do it. They most certainly could still try, but they are going to have to be some ass pulling extraordinaires at this point in order to get the public to believe something like that's going on. Who knows though? We'll just have to see.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Where was I going with that? How do you feel about a lot of these social media people that kind of get propped up in like that? It's almost like they get put into place and like their channels take off. They give it a YouTube channel, their channel takes off. Like they get like you know, it seems like they're there to like push a narrative. And what I've noticed about some people is like they'll start off, and I've interviewed a couple of them on my show, you know, like because you know, like one thing I'll do is like I'll interview all kinds of people. I don't really, you know, like I like to give everybody a voice, but I've interviewed a couple people where, I thought they had a good thing going at first, and then like it started to get more and more a little bit outlandish, where I was like, well, this is starting to become a little bit like weird. And then now it's almost like they have like a cult following. I'm starting to think, well, maybe that person was put there for a reason. Like maybe that was like a government op to like to for whatever. I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that?
Absolutely, dude. I mean, look at Alex Jones right now. Look at Alex Jones, man. And as much as I have a lot of respect for Alex because, I mean, even though I do think he's been compromised at this point, I think he has been, he's being used in the fashion that you're talking about. I used to follow Alex. I remember when I first woke up in 2008 when he was beating the streets and he was yelling at politicians still and things like that, stuff that
Back
he
when you went
doesn't
to
do.
do Bohemian Grove, right? He
Yeah,
did
yeah,
a
yeah. Back then, man, he's not doing that kind of stuff anymore. Don't get me wrong, but I've been paying attention to Alex for a long time. And then you look at what happened with Sandy Hook, the lawsuit with Sandy Hook, and now he's become a mainstream media. He's no longer alternative. Well, he's still under the slight guise of alternative media, but now he's catering to the bipartisan system. He's kind of rooting for the conservatives now instead of being, I guess you could say, what he was before, open-minded. He was discussing the esoteric. He was getting involved in all of this stuff. I still remember a lot of InfoWars episodes where he was talking about cymatics and other things like that from back in the day. But Alex definitely is one of those two. And there's another guy also as well. I don't really like to name names, but for this sake of the matter, so Christopher Green from AMTV. When I first started watching him back in 2013, 2014, I really enjoyed him. He was actually doing alternative media. Like he was actually being a journalist and he was trying to give like an objective view on everything that was going on. And then kind of what you were just saying, Rob, now he's become sensationalist. The title of every video is "This is it," or this is about to go down, and now he wants you to buy into this private island fund that if you buy into it, you'll be safe from anything when shit hits the fan. So Don, go ahead. Yeah, I see you want to say
Yeah,
something.
sorry. I
No, you're
just
good,
want
man.
to
Yeah.
hear what both of you feel on this one. Is like when somebody gets put into heavy rotation like this and seems to just go through the roof, all of a sudden a lot of it becomes pay to play too. Like, pay me for my information. I have a new $5,000 course that'll save your fucking life. Like it just seems like as soon as they pop, they have something to fucking sell too, and that irritates the shit out of me. And
Mhm.
like, I just, where do you guys stand on why that seems to happen? Is like you get famous, they seem to be protected, and they have valuable information that you have to buy. It just rubs me the wrong way, and I just wanted your guys' take on it.
Rob, go ahead. You first, man.
Well, I mean, I feel like everybody does do it. I mean, like it's I mean, like everybody has to sell their stuff to a certain point. But you're right, like it does get a little bit like insane, like and it's where people they yeah, you happen to see it all the time where someone will charge like $444 for a course or something like that, and
Yeah.
like you're like, why is this price so outrageous? Like, you know what I mean? And like, how impactful could the information be that like that like it has to be that much? Like some of this stuff is like the price of like my rent. You know what I mean? It's insane. Like it's gonna be like $850 or something. I'm like, I can't afford that. It's crazy. So I agree, I mean, like, I feel like everybody should have the ability to make money, but at the same time, I don't feel like it should be so egregious. So I agree with you, Don. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm with you too, Rob. For Go ahead, Don. Were you gonna say something? Sorry, man. Forget.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So it depends on what they're charging for. So like, there's certain things I think people cannot learn or do on their own. Especially if somebody is like, for instance, a certified psychedelic integration specialist, like, or things like that. Like, there's certain things that that I'm okay, I guess you could say, because I'm kind of with Rob there, like some people got to make their money, but it depends on what. Like if somebody's offering like a spiritual trade, I would say like psychedelic integration therapy or psychedelic extraction lessons, or they're taking you, they're gonna give you a certification of some kind at the end of it. At that point, I can't really fault that too much. But where I do agree with you guys is the stuff where they start charging for what I would call extraordinary shit. Like there was one person who was charging $500 a channeling to the Ashtar command, and that to me right there, I'm like okay, it's like no, absolutely not. You should not in your right mind be charging that much, but it seems to happen more with the guys, people who take off, who do kind of get their platform gets put on that pedestal, I guess you could say, by whomever or whatever decides to put them there. And kind of what I look for is, what are they trying to sell and what is it about? Like, are they just trying to sell you something that you can learn on your own, that you have access? Like I remember I saw this manifestation course somebody was trying to charge $400 for, and I chimed in. I'm like, dude, I'll give you links on how to learn how to do this for free. Like, you know what I mean? Like you should not be charging $400 for a freaking manifestation course. All right, which people, if they can find it online and they can figure it out themselves, like the only thing I could potentially ever in the future see myself charging for is I'm on my way to getting my Kundalini certification, my Kundalini yoga certification. So that would be like I would charge for a class, like don't get me wrong, but I then again too, I guess it depends on where the person's coming from. I would do it on a donation basis. Like I would not, try to, yeah. So, but I'm with you. It
Yeah.
is, man. It seems like that a lot of these people, it becomes a sales game to them and their heart's no longer in it. But I understand what you guys are saying.
I got a couple
Yeah.
questions for you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Don.
I, I Yeah, I think the reason I was touchy about it is it bothers me that, like, okay, I'm in the middle of my awakening. This is all a very emotional experience for me. And to see
Absolutely.
people that are either like taking advantage of or deterring people like me because I couldn't afford a $500 fucking course if my life depended on it. Right? No, that's just
Absolutely
not in the
not.
budget.
Yeah.
But if
That's not
like
anybody's
if
budget.
I was obsessive about it, like some people get, like, oh, I need to know this, you would give up your rent money and fuck yourself over. And that bothers me. That becomes a level of a shyster and it pisses me off. Right.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. I just,
No,
yeah.
there's grifters, man. I agree. But Rob, what were you gonna say?
I wanted to ask you about psychedelic integration therapy and also your Kundalini course because I'm interested in both of those. I do psychedelics and I had a Kundalini experience myself. I'll just tell you, like I had I had like a meaningful I've had some meaningful experiences on shrooms and DMT, and not like for party sake. Like, I don't do it, and I'm not irresponsible about it. But like I've
Mhm.
taken them like as like, for spiritual awareness. Like when I was young, it was more like for partying or whatever. But now it's like definitely for like spiritual growth. And then I had a Kundalini experience off shrooms. Like I feel like it was a real Kundalini experience. Like it was energy like was buzzing up my back, and then I had this energy come out of my chest, and it went into my pineal gland, and it exploded out of my crown. Then I kind of woke up from it like wondering like if it was real. And and that what's weird about like that is also is like my experiences with the paranormal, like when I've had like people have told me I'm in the secret space program, people have told me I've been abducted, but I don't have any memories of that. But I do have paranormal experiences, and when I've had experiences with the paranormal, they've always seemed more weird, or like I really can't put my finger on them, or like I always leave myself questioning like, wow, did that really happen? But I think it really did. So it's always like it's the paranormal almost it seems like more like weird or normal. Like I like for example, I got a spirit here in my in my studio. It was touching me at times, and I was waking up with bruises on me, and I was like interacting with it. It was very strange, but it would leave me like scratching my head, like, is this real? Like, that's kind of how I felt about my Kundalini experience. Like, but then like after the Kundalini experience, like my crown and my pineal gland was buzzing for like months, you know, and it wouldn't go off at important times. It would just go off whenever. It would just start like tingling here, and it would tingle here. It stopped doing that. I think mostly because I've had like a physical problem lately, but I wondered if I was on some kind of like, I don't know, but sorry, that was a lot of information
No, no,
there.
no, no. You're all good, man. So one thing I've noticed, there's a trend. A lot of individuals who undergo an entheogenic or psychedelic experience, as we call it, they do have what I would call the realization of the Kundalini being within. So I am in the camp that you don't need to awaken your Kundalini. It's already there. You just have to cultivate it. And what these entheogenic plants will do is they'll show you that it's there. They will. They'll let you know that this exists within you. Um, and this is what you're capable of. And so what I think really happened is the mushroom spirits, the mushroom entities, um, opened up that door for you to let you realize that you have this within you, and then now it's up to you to cultivate it. You know, one reason why I'm big on psychedelic integration therapy is because a lot of people, what they will do is they'll undergo the experience, and they'll have this, whether it be a really profound pivotal experience or potentially a troubling experience. It depends on what happens there. But a lot of times the way these experiences happen to us, they happen to us in a way that is hard to digest back into what I would call the left brain. Okay, because when we're in that psychedelic experience, we're very much, we lose our ego, our brain, and our consciousness is working in a different fashion than our everyday waking life. So why I think the integration can be important, for somebody after the experience, is it helps you digest what happened to you into a logical way that you can understand what happened to you, and you can grow from that experience. Now, there's people who can do this themselves naturally. There's some people who, who can find ways to put an experience where words fall short into an experience they can digest, but sometimes people have a hard time doing it. So that's why I'm big on integration therapy, whether it's done by yourself to work through these experiences, or it's done with somebody else. I mean, a good example, kind of like what you were talking about, what happened with your one guy. I did a heroic dose of mushrooms over the Thanksgiving weekend, and I got jumped by reptiles. Yep, I got interdimensionally jumped by reptilian beings. It was not a fun experience. And I had to kind of dig into my spiritual training that I do, to get myself out of that situation. But then after the experience, I kind of like sat there and I like integrated it. And I'm like, okay, I was being tested. This is what was happening, is I was being tested spiritually on this level, and I passed this test. And this was kind of a I guess you could say, we have our guides and things like that that will, or our higher self, if we want to call it, that will put us through these different tests. But that integration also will help you understand that it was a test and not just a traumatic experience.
That's interesting.
It was brutal, man. Like it was funny because I was sitting there at my table. I had just taken 4 grams of Thai strain mushrooms, and something felt interesting when it was kicking in. And I remember I grabbed something to drink, and I kid you not, when I went to go sip it, it was as if something hit the glass into my face. That's what it felt like. And then I set the glass down and I looked in front of me, and then I saw them manifest these hyperdimensional fractaline reptilian beings, and they were sitting there poking me, laughing at me, doing all kinds of weird stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go say the protection mantra. And as I started saying that, they started wrapping their hands around my throat chakra so I couldn't talk. And I was like, wow, this escalated fucking quick. And I was like, all right, I guess we're going into a meditation. And then in the meditation, I ended up getting them off of me. But what was interesting is when I finally broke them free from me, I saw this streak of energy come off of me that they were eating. They were eating it off of me. And I like got them off. And I remember like I locked them in my bedroom and I like sat there and I was like, all right, I'll deal with all of you later. And then like I had to go down and kind of, get my bearings back together after that.
You and I had talked before, Stephen, about like the different densities of existence. Now, do you think you metaphysically or consciously passed into a higher density and that's why you were able to physically or visually encounter the
I would
reptilians? Because
I would think so,
yeah,
man. And the reason why is I joke I'm kind of like I have one foot in the physical density and one foot outside of it, just how I am normally. I'm sure you can resonate with that also, man, based on the work that you do. You're kind of like you have a foot, it's an anchored foot in the 3D, and then you have the other foot kind of floating around in the higher densities. And I've had experiences with the entity experiences in my psychedelic trips did not really kick off until my late 20s, early 30s. A lot of my experiences before, I never really encountered entities per se, but it was always a deep desire of mine ever since I was a child. Kind of talking about how I always used to watch UFO shows and alien shows. I always wanted to meet extraterrestrial life. It was something that was always a deep desire of mine that I wanted to have happen to me in my life. And I think that kind of played into why I started getting these entity experiences a little later on in my psychedelic voyaging. And I feel that's because I always had that door kind of open, that I was open to experiencing that started to come through, I guess, when I was ready to handle what was going to be presented to me, because it is not what I thought it was going to be 100%.
That's interesting.
that kind of leads me into something else that I wanted you two to be able to discuss, because I know Rob's heavy into this too right now, is the astral meditation regime that you've been developing yourself. Because I know we've had similar successes and we've chit chatted off camera and just in our private chats. If you wanted to fill Rob in on what you've developed, because he's heavy into trying to get OBE and astral right now as well. So I think that'd be a really good go between for all three of us.
Oh, absolutely, man. So really right now, a lot of my out of my sober but out of body experiences that I've really been cultivating, because I still do use cannabis. I do use it minimally compared to what I used to use it as. So as far as like my dreams, it's hit or miss, but I do mostly become lucid in the dreams when I do dream. But a lot of my out of body voyaging has been coming through breath work and Kundalini yoga at this point in time, and releasing my own endogenous DMT that I have with all have within us. So I mean, really, kind of what I've been doing, man, is the breath work will get me there, or the Kundalini yoga kriyas will get me to that state where I'm leaving my body for 30 seconds at a time. It's nothing monumental as of just yet, but it's one thing you'll find, Rob, is it's fairly simple. And I think what we do as human beings is we're kind of our own worst enemies in this concept, is that we feel that something so, what we perceive to be higher density, higher consciousness, or anything like that would be so complex in order to do something, in order to get there. But in reality, man, that's a mental block we put on ourselves. It's actually quite simple to get ourselves to these altered states of consciousness through means that don't involve entheogenic chemicals. It's just a matter of understanding a basic recipe, and that's really what I would kind of boil it down to. I'm kind of interested to hear what you've been working on, Rob.
Basically, I've just been using like the Hemi Sync by Neural Beats. I try to use the Robert Monroe, and I've gotten to a point where I get to like the vibrational state, and I've maybe popped out of body like once or twice, but it hasn't really been anything significant. And then so I haven't been able to pop out of body. I'm trying to look for the best. I'm kind of trying to look for the best. I mean, I've listened to people like Robert Bruce from Australia, who has all different. He has all different kinds of like, ways to try to get out of body. And I've been studying it for a while because I'd like to experience the astral, but like I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do. Like, what were you able to do that was able to get you out? Like, and do you feel like you're definitely having like an out of body experience, or do you feel like you're having more like an astral, like a dream space experience?
So one bit of advice that I would use, or I would try to formulate into words when you're trying to experience an astral experience or an out of body experience, is you have to understand that your awareness takes into account more than just what you're seeing, and that it would be a really, like, I'd say a pivotal thing, because a lot of people, when they go to astral project, or they go to have these out of body experiences, they're doing it based on what they see, their vision. And it's like, well, that's a part of it, don't get me wrong, but what's your body feeling? Like, is your body experiencing this too? Because we have to think that our consciousness just isn't what we see. Our consciousness is our awareness overall. It's how we feel things, it's how we touch things, it's how we smell things, hear things, all of that. So I think really one thing a lot of people need to take into account is it's every aspect of your awareness. It's not just what you're seeing. It's every aspect that you're taking with you into this realm. And that's something that I kind of lay out for a lot of people, because that's where I think a lot of people kind of miss it, is like they think their vision is going into the astral realm, or what they see and they're perceiving. No, you have to somehow, in your own subjective way, find the understanding of what it means to take your whole awareness with you. And that is probably the best way I would describe it. So mine is definitely, I do pop out of body. So when I get an endogenous DMT release, is kind of when it all goes down for me. So I would even go online and say I'm no professional astral projector, or I'm no professional or somebody who's mastered it per se, because I do rely off of these natural DMT releases to get me there as of now. But what'll happen is I'll enter into like this fractaline realm. It's very similar to a DMT experience that I have, and that when you smoke it, and I'll be there, and I'm in my, what I would call, my true divine nature. And I will be traveling through my inner space, is kind of what it is. And because within us we have the entire existence, and everywhere we want to travel is located within. So that's been really like the bulk of my astral traveling and my OBEs, is I'm seeing, I guess you could say, the aspects of existence, and visiting different areas of existence that are within me.
That's interesting. How are you having the endogenous DNT experience? Can you do that naturally, or you have to like do like 5-MeO or something like that to?
You can naturally, man, through your breath. So I get them doing, so I'm not sure exactly the exact mechanism behind it. In fact, I'm trying to figure that out myself as we speak. but there's something about breath work and releasing your endogenous DMT. So in Kundalini, we do something, and especially in the breath work we do holds on the inhale, which you would call full holds, and then we do holds on the exhale, which is you're holding your breath out when you exhale, and then you're holding it then. There's got to be some kind of sympathetic nervous system response to this in my eyes, that the body believes it is about to die. It's like almost like a replication of a situation where you're without breath, and what will happen is during these holds that you do, your body will start to dump out its natural DMT, and it'll feel like you're getting dizzy. A lot of people mistake it for dizziness, but what you need to do at that point is maintain your consciousness during that period. And then what you'll come to find is when you do that, you will be shot out into a DMT breakthrough experience. Now, it doesn't last as long as smoke DMT. Don't get me wrong. I'd say a lot of the ones that I've had have been anywhere from 30 minutes, 30 seconds to a minute tops. Of course, it feels longer, while you're there, but there's a weird response in the body when it comes to doing certain breath patterns, and I would even say this kind of, Don does this too. It even ties back into what I would call a lot of ancient Vedic sciences, when it comes to balancing your prana, that will elicit this effect. It's interesting, like, to say the least. And that's my explanation for it as of now. That there's some kind of response in the body that when you're breathing this way, it almost mimics death to an extent. And that's why your brain will release that dump of endogenous DMT.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. I've heard about that. I mean, I messed around with breath work like about a couple of years ago. I found this one breath technique online. It was really interesting. It was like where I don't know if you ever heard of this one, where you're like exchanging the breath, where you're going like in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the mouth, out through the nose, and it's like a constant rotation. And then you're like switching it up, and then supposedly that's supposed to like produce some kind of DMT experience. Like it never for me, for that breath, like I experienced some stuff, but like I'd like to try what you're talking about. That sounds a lot more like DMT releasing, that's interesting.
Absolutely. No, yeah, man,
Um,
I'll set you up. I'll set you up. Don does this, Don does it as well. So he's experienced the goodness that this can
Yeah.
hold, man.
One thing I wanted to
Um,
ask you guys about is I'm having Jerry Marzinski on today at 8 o'clock. Like, do you guys have opinion on him? Like, I think he's really good for like mental health and entities and stuff like that. I figured I would ask you guys about it. He's a he has amazing work. As far as I just don't, I haven't prepared for it yet. But I mean, I've watched some of his interviews before, but yeah, have you ever talked to him, Steven?
No, I have not talked to Jerry. I've listened to a couple of his things. I mean, as far as like you're saying, his mental health, his perspective on mental health, I find it to be very enlightening. I think, but honestly, man, to be 100% honest, I haven't heard too much of his stuff. But I have not had him on. But I'm actually going to do some research myself on him and get to know him a little better as well.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, go ahead.
What he thinks is, I think mostly it's he thinks that the cause of like schizophrenia is like entities. You know what I mean? Which is a really good point. It makes a lot of sense. That's what I was getting to. Like, I think a lot of mental health and stuff could be like entities, or like that just kind of resonates with me, and it makes sense. It would be like, well, okay, like if someone's experiencing a voice in their head that they don't think is theirs, well, where's that coming from? It has to come from somewhere. Like, a lot of people think it's the ego, but I don't think I mean, I think sometimes it could be the ego. And then there's people who have like full-blown schizophrenia who experience like auditory stuff, so I guess there's levels to it as well. It's interesting. Like, do you have an opinion on that?
Don, did you want to say
Hey
something?
Rob. Yeah, something Spin and I had talked about recently, and I actually lost both of my grandmothers to Alzheimer's, and I witnessed their deterioration and then their induction into the medical system. Um, I have serious question because we all know they hide things in plain truth, right? And if you think about some of the way these words sound, Alzheimer's, all timers, because my grandmother lost track of where she was in time at one point. I think her consciousness was able to shift through time. At one point, she scared the hell out of my mother, but she thought she was 20 years old again, and she was trying to go home back to her childhood home. She didn't realize at what point in time she was anymore. Now, another one is dementia. Is it demented, or can they see through the dimensions? Can they see those lizard people? Are they freaking out because they see things around us that we can't perceive because we're normal? That's because when you think about in old tribes and stuff, what happens to the old people? They don't put them in a home and on medication. They make them the tribal elder and pay attention to their visions because they're bringing knowledge. This is ridiculous in North America, what we do to our old people. That's not a disease, that's a gift. Listen, work with them, help them bridge reality. Don't lock them away.
I agree with you, Don, because my perspective on, things like schizophrenia and what you were just saying with Alzheimer's and dementia. My grandmother, my mom's side, passed away from dementia. I do think what we have is we have a spiritual issue that is being diagnosed as a medical issue. There's a lot of shamans and a lot of medicine men who believe people with schizophrenia are gifted spiritually, but because they do not understand this, and and at least in our current Western paradigm, where they take this and they make it into a mental condition. So instead of somebody having the realization that they're gifted and they need to hone these talents that they have, what happens to them is they are told that they are sick mentally. What they are seeing is and experiencing is not real, and they're put on these really hardcore medications with really bad side effects to combat what's going on. As far as entities being the cause, I actually have a very interesting perspective on that because, we are essentially the universe within us. I mean, everything, all of the angels, demons, and the gods, everything exists within us and without us. So, where a lot of, Rob kind of brought it up when he was talking about, where a lot of the demons live is in the ego. We kind of talk about the symbolism between Solomon and the Jinn and the brass vessel. The brass vessel was a symbolism for the human body, and he was able to control and to, be able to master the control of the jinn that existed in the brass vessel. So kind of where I go with that is these entities can contribute, yes, but they do stem from within. And a lot of the demonic entities or the aspects of these demonic entities reside in our ego. And this is where they live and what they take over when, they're experiencing things like this. And now let's take somebody with schizophrenia who's unaware that they have this spiritual talent and they're unaware of this. Yes, a negative entity could most certainly take advantage of that at that point because they're unaware of the fact that they have this sight or this insight or this vision. And yes, when you're unaware, your psyche is the most easily manipulated thing in the world. And that's why we look at everything going on today on how easily manipulated a lot of people are, is because they are unaware that that is happening. And that's why the psyche can be one of the strongest fucking things out there if it has the awareness of what's going on. But if it does not, it can be the most fragile and it can be the most easily manipulated thing. And that's where I kind of, take that perspective on that a lot of people, even what you were saying about dementia, what that could very well be, Don, is that the filter that is in place by the ego could be dissolving. So these
Mhm.
people are able to have these visions and to see these things at a greater rate than they did when they were younger, because whatever could potentially be going on with the transmitter, which is your brain, has been able to pull back the filter. So that's a very good thing to think about, Don.
Yeah.
So do you think like the people that are dying, because my grandmother died of Alzheimer's too, or it was like dementia, then it turned into full blown Alzheimer's, and then like she was so bad at the end. I remember like she was like curled up in a ball and she couldn't even like move her muscles. So like what I'm wondering is this like a full blown like entity takeover? Does the mind do like states in the mind get disabled and then something takes it over and feeds off it or something like that? Do you think it's something like that, or do you think it's like also a medical thing too, like where it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I
Well,
don't know.
this is what I think. So like I'm a huge believer. I sit in this camp that the brain is merely a transmitter for the consciousness. Consciousness is not brain dependent. It exists outside of all of that. We're sitting in our consciousness, if we really want to kind of get technical on that. But that doesn't mean that if something happens to the transmitter, in the physical realm, that that these things cannot happen. And I mean it, so I guess you could say it's a little bit of both, Rob. I mean, we're talking about how the if the transmitter is damaged to some kind of degree for said consciousness, and that individual doesn't understand that, of course, in that case, we don't know if they can or they cannot. But can something take advantage of that? Absolutely. 100%. When we're talking about it really also, in my eyes, depends on the individual. One thing I see, because I'm a huge proponent for the fact that consciousness creates reality. A lot of what can happen to the individual is based on the belief system of that individual as well. So if they were open to things like that before the transmitter was damaged, they have by default given over that free will, to, or that open, or that awareness over to that frame of thought and that frame of belief. So if that person believed in different entities and things like that, it kind of leaves them open. That's just my opinion, my thought process on it, though.
That's interesting. It is.
So, yeah, man.
Well,
So yeah,
guys,
no,
we
yeah.
have oh,
Go ahead,
we
Don.
we
Sorry,
have
yeah.
covered a we've covered a lot of stuff today, and if you guys are down, I would love to come back after a couple of weeks and do something like this again, because this has just
Absolutely.
melted my brain. Um, and I still have to deal with Karen Holton this afternoon because it's my weekly show with her. Um,
Yeah.
so this has been amazing. I got to reset and recoup. I want to thank you guys both for being here. Do you guys want to let everybody know where to find you both? If
Hey,
uh want to go
Rob, what are your socials, man? Are you on X or Facebook or anything like that? Because
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
don't
add
have
you.
I have a huge, for some reason I have a huge like following, or not a huge following. I have a bigger following on Facebook, but then I'm really not that active on Twitter. And I mean I still call it Twitter. I don't know. It's hilarious. I don't know what to call it. Twitter X. It's funny, right? But I mean it's like, but then and then I have like a mediocre following on Instagram. But I usually put all those links. I'm Robert.Kalil.7 on Facebook, at Kalil Robert on Instagram, and I'm at Robert Kalil 1121. It's Kalil Robert Kalil 1121 on X or Twitter, and then on it's just for, they want to find the typical skeptic podcast. It's everywhere. It's like, I'm on Rumble, Rockfin, YouTube, all the major platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all that stuff. And yeah, and thank you guys. This was amazing. I really enjoyed this. This was a really fun chat.
Thanks, Rob. No, it was nice to meet you today, man. You guys can find me on all social medias under BGcast. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, X under BGcast. I am part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and you can find me on www.forbiddenknowledge.news, as well as everybody else on the network. And please check out the documentaries. Check out the Forbidden Knowledge documentary. And check out JFKX by Ryder Lee. They're really awesome, and probably two of the coolest documentaries I've seen in a while. And then you can find me on Rumble under BGcast. I just started streaming back to YouTube under BGcast, and you can find me on all major podcast platforms under BGcast. And thanks, Don, and thanks, Rob. This was really interesting, and yes, I'm looking forward to our round 2 for this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go subscribe to you now.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I'll put all of your guys' links in the description if you guys want to send them to me on Messenger. And I'll let this out tomorrow. But thank you guys so much. The spin just laughing in the background. I was like, hold my face, go, what the fuck? But no, thank you guys again, and thank you everybody for watching.